welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that just finished a delicious piece of pineapple upside-down cake and did 18 push-ups. It's Victor Dandridge Jr.
Hey, I did it all at the same time, mind you. One hand on them, one hand.
You did 18 one-armed push-ups while holding a fork or spoon in your other hand, eating pineapple upside-down cake.
I'm sorry. When I'm in my workout mode, I'm an absolute savage. So we don't use forks or spoons. We eat with our bare hands. Wow. Okay. What you do is you alternate hands. It gets a little sticky, but you alternate hands as you do it. Keeps you balanced. You see?
That's an interesting technique. When I used to do that, I would kind of elevate the pineapple upside down cakes. When I went down, I'd take a bite and go up, go down, take a bite.
Yeah. I like that. I might try that on my next round.
It's an Ohio thing that you guys do. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're crazy that way. Buckeyes are nuts, okay? That's all I'm going to say. It's a truism, okay? It's right there.
Oh, well, hey, thank you so much for joining me. You were a guest on the Deep Blue Sea podcast, one of our more popular eps. We talked about prequels to Deep Blue Sea. We talked about jet ski chases. It was glorious. And I'm glad to have you back. And when we got to talking, and you said you wanted to talk about The Visit by M. Night Shyamalan. Like, why'd you want to discuss this movie?
So, okay, first and foremost, M. Night fan since, right? I won't say day one, I'll say day two, because as much as I appreciate The Sixth Sense, that was not the movie that did it for me. Like, I gave him his marks. It was Unbreakable, his second feature, that really made me fall in love with him as a storyteller, director, the whole nine.
No.
The Visit.
Oh, no, you're a comic book writer. You write comic books.
Yes.
Unbreakable is my favorite comic book movie ever made. Yeah.
This is why we're friends.
Like,
right here.
I just got goosebumps talking about it. I like it more than Endgame. I like it more than Dark Knight. I love how humid it is. Human it is. And I guess it does get humid in Pennsylvania.
It's humid too.
Yeah, I feel like it gets humid in the summer. So yeah, I feel that. Oh, yes. But yeah, you got Mr. Glass. You get his origin story. You get David Dunn's origin story. You get the man in the orange jumpsuit spitting beer on that dead lady chained to the radiator.
That was so dirty, man. That's dirty.
That's one of the craziest PG-13 visuals I've ever seen in my life. I have never.
Yes.
I watch a lot of movies, and I forget about 90% of them because I just got to keep. I really do. I got to keep I always have assignments each week, so it's like just putting stuff out there.
Your consumption's got to be high.
And you got to push stuff out to get new stuff in, and Deep Blue Sea takes up 98% of my brain, but I would say this scene from Unbreakable takes up 0.007, which is still pretty good. And
that's a lot.
Just the comic books, like the shop. I mean, this is before comic books were cool. This was before Blade had come out. But I mean, still, if anything, there's X-Men, Spider-Man stuff. But Unbreakable,
it actually predates X-Men,
and it's so good.
Like, how crazy is that?
The comic book store, Mr. Glass. I mean, and I love that movie. And I was actually researching a lot of M. Night Shyamalan, of his works, and for years Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis would harass him about a sequel. They were like, Sam Jackson, he has some funny stories. Whenever he saw M. Night, he's like, "Hey, mother effer, like, when we doing a sequel?" Like, that's what he would say in M. Night. And like one time, their cars stopped next to each other randomly in L.A. Jackson puts down his window and gets M. Night to put down his window, and then he's like, "Hey, mother effer, when we doing a sequel?" Like, he's been harassing him.
Oh my God, I love it.
Sorry to interrupt you on that, but
with good reason.
You're a creator.
No, but I mean, that's with good
Unbreakable was about the comic books, and it was a comic book movie, and it was a superhero movie, and it was supremely effective. So yeah, it's kind of cool that we're on the same page about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, as a writer, one of the things that you take note of, or about with Unbreakable is the fact that it's the first act of the story. And the idea of stopping the movie at the end of the first act, when the hero finally realizes, hey, I have these powers and this is who I'm going to be, credits, like, that's insane. That's like, take the Sam Raimi, Spider-Man universe, and after, Peter realizes that the guy that killed Uncle Ben is the guy that he could have stopped, and he, suddenly kills that guy, or that guy kills himself. It depends on how you want to look at it. And then as soon as he's like, I'm going to be Spider-Man, and then credits. M. Night was able to tell an entire movie out of what is normally the first 15 minutes of a film. And that's brilliant. So that's, like, when it comes to craft and storytelling, he had me. He absolutely had me. And that takes us to, I mean, through The Village, Signs, so many different things. When we get to the Visit, that was one where my feelings towards M. Night were in a resurgence. Like, he had a couple movies that I wasn't necessarily loving, but between Devil and The Visit, he got
Devil's
me
so good
in the biggest way possible. Oh my, people
sleep
on this movie. Like, they knock out. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good this movie is. It's subtle. But thematically, I mean, if you like Signs, Devil has just the same amount of religious, almost continuity to it. And it's all there. It's so cool. The setup of, the devil works harder, when things are going wrong. So if you ever have like a bad day and it just seems to be a series of things after another, that's the devil work. I'm like, come on. That is the most intense, spiritually, crazy thing.
And
get to The Visit and he pivots. It's still scary, but for a totally different reason. And
it's hilarious.
I love that movie.
And I remember I was in the theater and the trailer for Devil came on, and like M. Night didn't even direct Devil, he produced it, and like people, he wrote it, like came up with the idea, but people laughed when they saw M. Night Shyamalan, and I was in a packed theater.
Come on.
And this is right. You got to understand, like this is after The Happening, which I adore. It's after Lady in the Water. Yeah, it's after.
I love that one.
Oh, dude,
I love Lady in the Water.
Here's the thing about M. Night. Like, so he started, like, I know he directed Wide Awake, he wrote Stuart Little, but Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs. Unbreakable wasn't a blockbuster, but Sixth Sense and Signs were. I was working in theaters a movie theater when that came out. I saw lines and lines of people just loving it. But when The Village came out, it was like like, when, like, you had this steel door that, like, no one could kick in, but then, like, Village came out and the door cracked a little bit. Like, the door, there's some cracks, like, there's some cracks in the armor. And then Lady in the Water came in, and critics and audience just started kicking the crap out of this door, burst it open. Happening comes out, everyone hates on it. Last Airbender, After Earth, like people just got on this M. Night hate train, and then he recenters himself, raises $5 million off of his home, like he mortgaged his home, and he goes and makes The Visit for $5 million. Studio executives turned it down. They're like, "This is
Are you serious?
This is bad. This is not a good movie." No one wanted to work with him. So he made this movie with his own money, and then he goes and he shows it to all the heads of Hollywood, and they're like, "No, we do not want this." So he goes back and he re-edits it. He takes out the score, he takes that out, he tightens it up, then he takes it to Blumhouse, and Jason Blum is like, "Yeah, let's do this. Like, I didn't make it.
Gimme.
I didn't pay for this. I'll distribute the heck out of this thing." So they distribute it, and it goes on to make over $100 million worldwide.
Come on. That is a success.
Were you not so happy when The Visit came out? Because it was M. Night recentering, M. Night making a comeback, like him embracing what he's best at. And I found another quote from him. He didn't want to make thrillers his whole life, but then eventually he's like, "I love Agatha Christie books. When I open an Agatha Christie book, it's a thriller, it's a mystery. So why not go see an M. Night movie and just be a thriller?" He's like, "I want to write. I'm happy doing nothing." So now he's finally found peace. He can make thrillers for the rest of his life. And he said he wants to be the Tim Duncan of thrillers.
I'm with that. I am so with that. Tim Duncan, again, another understated, phenomenal basketball player.
Always.
People want to be like, "Oh, count the rings." Let's look at what the man did for the game. Okay? Like, don't just look at it on an individualized team basis. What did he do for the game? Those are
when he said Tim Duncan, because he's like probably one of my favorite players ever. I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, because he wants to be the Tim Duncan of thrillers.
Yeah. I give him mad props because he didn't pick somebody from the Pistons.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like somebody from a Philly-based team, Pistons or
like Iverson.
76ers. Like he didn't. Yeah, like he didn't pick anybody from a Philadelphia the Pistons
Detroit.
are in Philadelphia. That's in Michigan. My bad. Sorry. My bad. But yeah, the 76ers. He didn't pick anybody from a Philly-based team, and he could have because he's so Philly. But in that regard, I think that what we're hearing is what happens when somebody is given so many accolades. I mean, he was called the next Spielberg, and that's a lot to deal with. You know what I'm saying? I think that any quote unquote misstep that he made career wise is because he was trying to not be, but live up to that concept. And once he recentered, like you said, and he was like, let me be M. Night, that's where he shined. You know, even in producing Devil, he shined because it was tight story. It was quick. Boom, boom. The concept was great. The concept of The Visit is so dope. If this was, and the reason why I love this, again, taking something that is only supposed to be functional in a small set and making it a movie, he's phenomenal. If this was an episode of Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, The Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, and it only had like a 8-minute piece, it would be probably one of people's favorite episode from that series. But he was like, I can make a movie out of this. And he did. And it's great. Oh my God. He plays around with found footage. Come on.
I had to send you a message.
People give him his
while
roses.
watching. And I had only watched it once and I loved it. I watched it again for this.
Yeah.
And I sent you a message. I'm like, this movie is so much funnier the second time around because it has such a mean sense of humor. There's murder in this movie. People die.
Yes.
A 15-year-old girl stabs a escaped psychiatric ward patient to death with a glass shard. A kid gets over his freezing by tackling a man, then turning this man's head into pineapple upside down cake with a refrigerator. It's violent, but it also has just a sense of humor to it that is quite sly. I think it's a sly sense of humor with the diaper bit. I mean, a child gets a diaper, like a germaphone smushed in his face. It is. I've never laughed harder. And when the grandma in air quotes is chasing the kids around the basement, and then she walks out from underneath it with like her butt showing because her pants are ripped. It's just it's the weirdest, funniest, and it's better the second time, I think, because you can just enjoy the experience. Yeah.
See more. You definitely see more. I think one of the things that, as always, after Sixth Sense, people came to M. Night movies to look for the twist. That's what they came for. And you're looking so hard for the forest that you fail to see the trees. So after you watch The Visit and you know what, the twist is going to be, go back and watch it. And it becomes so obvious throughout the whole movie that there are these things that are not right. And it becomes that much more clear and brilliant how he'll take you to a place of utter terror and then make you laugh. So that way you don't quit, right? Like you're still invested and the mystery still maintains. Even after you've seen it, the mystery still maintains because you'll go through, oh my God, no. That's funny. Look, her butt's out. Like he throttles and then he pulls back and he throttles and then he pulls back until you finally make it to the end. And it's this glorious payoff. He is a master storyteller.
I gotta say, I love a lot of people are like, why didn't the kids just leave? These kids are children, and children, they're children, and you get the sundowning breakdown, you get the incontinence breakdown. I mean, these are kids who, I think at this age, I mean, they are definitely jaded. They definitely hurt with their parents split and their dad leaving, and they have like a lot of sadness on themselves, and so they're really dedicated to finishing this film. A lot of people are like, why didn't they run? Like, what? I mean, these are kids, and these are explanations. These explanations hold up for about the first half of the movie, and I think once it gets, and then also it's a movie. You have to keep you have to keep people in. You have there's suspension of disbelief. So I think the way that they hold them in there, and I love when Catherine Hahn, who's awesome, and she's like, those aren't your grandparents. You're just going, oh!
Yeah, like that's, and you're like, what do you mean? Like this whole time, what are you talking about?
They've already murdered people. They murdered Stacy. They had murdered a few other people. Yep. So, I mean, they're not just these kids aren't going to run away. And that kid freezes.
Right.
So then that's another reason to keep him in the house.
That's a real moment. Yeah. Real moment. Fear is not something that you can always calculate how you're going to respond. And nothing plays that better than having a kid that's afraid and a kid that's afraid of something that an